Every single one of these songs was rejected. Record labels said no. Radio programmers laughed. Critics called them worthless garbage, destined for the bargain bin. And every single one of them became a massive hit that outsold the songs those same experts had approved. The 1960s proved that nobody knows anything about what the public actually wants. These are 10 joke songs that made fools of everyone who claimed to understand music. October 1962. Halloween was approaching, and a struggling actor named Bobby Pickett had an idea. He had been doing Boris Karloff impressions in his nightclub act for years. What if he turned that impression into a song? He teamed up with producer Gary Paxton and recorded the track in a tiny studio with almost no budget. They got creative with sound effects. The opening coffin creak was actually a rusty nail being pulled from a board. The bubbling cauldron was water blown through a straw. The rattling chains were just chains dropped on the floor. Every element of the song was held together with creativity and duct tape. Every major label passed on it. They thought it was ridiculous, but Paxton believed in the song and released it on his own small label. Within weeks, it was everywhere. On October 20th, 1962, Monster Mash hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
We're having fun. The party had just begun.
It stayed there for 2 weeks, perfectly timed for Halloween. The BBC banned it for being too morbid, which only made it more popular everywhere else. The song sold over 1 million copies. But here's the remarkable part. It kept coming back. Monster Mash recharted in 1970, reaching number 91. Then, in 1973, it climbed all the way back to number 10. The song has returned to the Billboard charts multiple times since then. As of 2023, Monster Mash still generates roughly $1 million annually in royalties. Not bad for a joke song recorded in one afternoon. In 1963, a garage band from Minneapolis called The Trashmen was playing a show when their drummer Steve Warrer did something spontaneous. He mashed together 2 rhythm and blues songs by the Rivingtons into one chaotic explosion. The result was Surfin' Bird, a song that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. It combined the choruses of Papa Mo Mo and the Birds the Word into a frenzied surf rock assault. The only real lyrics were repeated phrases about a bird. A local disc jockey named Bill Dial was at that show and immediately saw the potential. He convinced the band to record it in a small Minneapolis studio. They cut the track, and Deal entered it in a local battle of the bands. It won. Then it won a competition in Chicago. Before long, major labels were interested. In November 1963, the song became an instant sensation. It reportedly sold 30,000 copies in the Twin Cities alone during its first weekend. By early January 1964, the song peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 2 weeks. The Rivingtons, who wrote the original songs, threatened to sue for plagiarism. The credits were changed to include them, and they began receiving royalties. This turned out to be a financial windfall, as the song has been used in countless films, shows, and commercials over the decades. The song became a garage rock classic, influencing punk bands in the 70s. The Ramones covered it, the Cramps covered it. In 2008, it gained a whole new generation of fans when it was featured in an episode of Family Guy where Peter Griffin becomes obsessed with the song. The Trashmen never had another major hit. They disbanded in 1967. But Surfin' Bird lives on as one of the most ridiculous and nonsensical rock songs ever recorded.
Lord, I will be your humble servant, and your love is my reward.
America was still reeling from the assassination of President Kennedy just weeks earlier. The nation needed comfort, something pure and simple, and that is exactly what they got from the most unlikely source imaginable. Sister Luke Gabrielle was a 30-year-old Belgian nun who enjoyed playing guitar and writing songs at her convent. Her fellow sisters loved her music and suggested she record an album. So, in 1963, she made a simple collection of religious folk songs in French. Nobody expected what happened next.
His armor was devotion, and the gospel was his sword.
On December 7th, 1963, Dominique hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 4 weeks. A song entirely in French, performed by a nun, became the biggest hit in America during one of the darkest moments in the nation's history. She became known worldwide as the Singing Nun. Hollywood made a film about her life starring Debbie Reynolds in 1966. But Sister Luke Gabrielle's story did not have a happy ending. She left the convent, struggled with tax problems on royalties that had gone to the church, and tragically took her own life in 1985. But in that moment in 1963, Dominique was exactly what the world needed to hear.
One big eye, like a Mr. Shaking in the city. It looks like...
Although technically released in 1958, the influence of Purple People Eater extended well into the 60s and deserves mention as one of the most successful novelty songs of the era. Written and performed by singer and actor Sheb Wooley, this bizarre tale of a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple creature became a cultural phenomenon. Wooley got the idea from a friend's young child who had combined the phrases purple people and man-eater. The song told the story of a strange creature that came to Earth. But the punchline was that the creature ate purple people, not that it was a purple creature that ate people. The recording featured Wooley's voice alternating with a sped-up voice for the alien, similar to the technique David Seville would use for the Chipmunks. The creature wanted to come to Earth to join a rock and roll band, making it a perfect novelty song for the rock era. In June 1958, it hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 6 weeks. That is longer than most serious songs of the era. It sold over 3 million copies and became one of the biggest songs of 1958. The influence lasted through the 60s. In 1988, there was even a film based on the song starring Ned Beatty and Shelley Winters. Wooley was a successful actor who appeared in dozens of Western films and television shows. He had another novelty hit in 1962 with That's My Pa, but nothing matched his Purple People Eater.
Way, ho, ho, hee hee, ha ha, to the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time.
In 1966, a recording engineer named Jerry Samuels created what might be the strangest hit single in music history. There was no melody, no harmony, not a single musical note. Just a snare drum pattern, a voice that speeds up progressively throughout the song, and a police siren at the end. The narrator appears to be having a breakdown over a lost relationship. He sounds excited that the men in white coats are coming to take him to the funny farm. His mental state deteriorates with each verse as the tempo increases and his voice accelerates into frantic desperation. Samuels recorded it under the name Napoleon XIV. He actually worked at the recording studio, so he made it during off hours when nobody else was around. To create that unsettling vocal effect, he used a variable frequency oscillator to gradually speed up his voice as the song progressed. The effect was deeply unsettling.
Well, you just wait, they'll find you yet, and when they do, they'll...
He worried the song might offend people struggling with mental illness, so he added a twist in the final verse. The whole time, the narrator was not talking to a woman. He was talking to his runaway dog. That detail made it just satirical enough to avoid being completely tasteless. The song exploded. It hit #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #1 on the Cashbox chart in August 1966. In the United Kingdom, it reached #4. Sales topped 1 million copies almost immediately. Radio stations loved it because it was so different from everything else on the airwaves. But some found it too disturbing and pulled it from rotation after just a few weeks. The chart run was unusually brief due to this controversy. But that original recording remains one of the most bizarre commercial successes in pop music history. In 1960, a novelty song about a caveman became an unexpected smash hit. Alley Oop was based on a popular comic strip character created by V.T. Hamlin in 1932. The song reimagined this prehistoric strongman as a rock and roll hero. Songwriter and producer Kim Fowley wrote it with Gary Paxton, the same Gary Paxton who would later produce Monster Mash. They created the Hollywood Argyles specifically for this recording, assembling session musicians to cut the track. The song had that classic early 60s sound with hand claps, group vocals, and a driving beat. The lead vocal described Alley Oop walking his dinosaur, swinging his club, and being the toughest man in history. There was even a female backing vocal group providing call and response.
Way back a long time ago.
In May 1960, it climbed rapidly up the charts. By July, Alley Oop reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, where it stayed for 1 week. It also hit #1 on the R&B charts, showing its crossover appeal. The success created a problem. The Hollywood Argyles did not exist as a real band. They were just a studio creation. When demand for live performances came in, they had to quickly assemble different lineups of musicians to tour under the name. Several groups claiming to be the Hollywood Argyles toured simultaneously, each with different members. It became a confusing situation that eventually led to lawsuits and disputes over who had the right to use the name. But for one brief moment in 1960, Alley Oop ruled the airwaves. In the summer of 1960, a 16-year-old kid from Queens changed the landscape of pop music with a song about swimwear. Brian Hyland recorded a novelty track about a shy girl too embarrassed to be seen in her new bikini. The title alone took up half the radio airtime, but audiences could not get enough of it. Songwriter Paul Vance got the idea while watching his 2-year-old daughter at the beach. She was wearing a tiny bikini and kept hiding behind her mother, too shy to come out. By the time they left the sand, Vance and his writing partner Lee Pockris had sketched out the entire song in their heads.
She was afraid to come out in the open, so a blanket.
They brought in young Hyland to record it, and the rest became pop history. The song shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in August 1960. It stayed there for a week before being knocked off by Elvis Presley, but its impact lasted far longer than its chart run. The novelty hit sold over 1 million copies and turned Hyland into a teenage sensation overnight. The song has been covered countless times since then and remains a staple of oldies radio more than 6 decades later. All because of a shy toddler in a polka dot swimsuit. The year was 1966, and British songwriter Jeff Stevens was tired of modern music. He decided to write something that sounded like it belonged in the 1920s. The result was a song about heartbreak sung through a megaphone with backing from a brass band. Winchester Cathedral was deliberately old-fashioned in every way. The narrator speaks to the famous English church as if it were a therapist, lamenting that his girl left him while standing alone inside its walls. The vocal effect came from singing through a cheap megaphone, giving it that vintage tinny sound that made listeners feel like they had stepped back in time. Stevens recorded it with session musicians and released it under the name The New Vaudeville Band, even though no such band actually existed yet. The lead vocal was sung by John Carter, but Stevens kept it for the commercial release when he realized it sounded perfect.
You could have done something.
The song became a massive hit. In America, it reached #1 in December 1966, actually knocking the Supremes off the top spot. After being bumped by Good Vibrations from the Beach Boys for 1 week, it climbed back to #1 for 2 more weeks. The band was managed by Peter Grant, who later became famous as the manager of Led Zeppelin. The New Vaudeville Band had a couple more minor hits, but Winchester Cathedral remained their defining moment. 50 years later, a new version was recorded by the actual Winchester Cathedral Choir to celebrate the anniversary.
You this letter, just to say my compound fracture's getting better.
Picture this. It is the summer of 1963, and a comedian named Alan Sherman releases a song written from the perspective of a miserable kid at summer camp. The melody was borrowed from a classical piece by Ponchielli called Dance of the Hours. The result was a #2 hit that became an instant comedy classic. Sherman based the lyrics on actual letters his son Robert sent home from Camp Champlain in New York. The complaints were real. The homesickness was real. Sherman simply amplified everything to absurd proportions. In the song, the young camper describes one disaster after another. Fellow campers are getting lost. The food is terrible. The counselors are useless. The weather is a nightmare. And he desperately begs his parents to bring him home. Then in the final verse, the sun comes out, and suddenly, camp is wonderful. Please disregard this letter. The twist made it even funnier.
Here's improving. All the little black things in it are not moving.
The song peaked at #2 on the Billboard charts in August 1963, blocked from the top spot only by Stevie Wonder and then the Angels. The timing was perfect, released just as millions of American kids were heading off to summer camp themselves. Sherman won a Grammy for the recording. The song became so embedded in American culture that it was selected by the Library of Congress in 2019 for preservation in the National Recording Registry. An honor usually reserved for serious musical achievements, Sherman became the king of song parodies, paving the way for artists like Weird Al Yankovic decades later.
The chic of the burning sand. They had emeralds and rubies just dripping off of him.
Before he became known for the streak in the 70s, Ray Stevens was already a veteran of novelty songs. In 1962, he released Ahab the Arab, a comedic story about a sheik and his camel named Clyde. Stevens wrote and performed the song, which told the tale of Ahab pursuing the fairest maiden in the land with his trusty camel companion. The song was packed with sound effects, including the distinctive sound of Clyde, the camel, and various musical flourishes. What made the song work was Stevens's commitment to the comedy. He created distinct voices for the characters and placed unexpected sound effects at just the right moments. The production was rich in detail, from the camel's reactions to the exotic musical backdrop.
About midnight, he'd jump on his camel named Clyde.
In September 1962, Ahab the Arab climbed to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. It spent several months on the charts and sold over 1 million copies. Stevens also released an album of the same name to capitalize on the song's success. The song made Stevens a household name, although some critics found the stereotypical portrayal problematic even at the time. Nonetheless, audiences loved it. Stevens continued with similar novelty songs throughout the 60s. By the 70s, Stevens had perfected his craft. The streak became his biggest hit, but fans from the 60s remembered Ahab and his camel Clyde as the song that started it all.
I come Mr. Shaking in the city. It looks like a purple
Those were 10 joke songs from the 60s that somehow became massive hits around the world. From singing nuns to surf-crazed birds, from homesick campers to dancing monsters, these novelty records prove that sometimes the strangest ideas make the best music. The remarkable thing is how many of these songs are still with us today. They have been featured in films, television shows, commercials, and memes. They have influenced generations of musicians and comedians, and they remind us of a time when radio was not afraid to play something completely ridiculous. What is your favorite novelty song from the 60s? Tell us in the comments.